Ethan had spent years hiding his truth from his devoutly religious family, carefully erasing every trace of his real self. But one careless moment changed everything. When his cousin Noah grabbed his phone and stumbled upon his search history, Ethan's carefully constructed world began to crumble. What followed was a devastating betrayal that not only exposed Ethan's secret, but revealed Noah's own hidden desires. The shocking finale will leave you speechless, proving that some secrets don't just destroy, they shatter lives forever. Ethan sat on the worn couch in his parents' living room, scrolling aimlessly through his phone as the sound of the television droned in the background. At 22, he had become an expert at blending into the conservative, religious world of his family while keeping his true self hidden. His relationships with men were a secret he had vowed to carry to his grave. In a household where even the smallest deviation from tradition was met with scorn, Ethan knew there was no room for acceptance. Across the room, his cousin Noah, 2 years younger and seemingly carefree, lounged with a mischievous grin. Noah was the golden boy of the family, charming, athletic, and adored by everyone. But Ethan had always sensed there was more to Noah than met the eye, though he never delved too deeply. The two had grown up together, sharing a bond that felt closer than that of brothers. Yet, there was always an unspoken tension Ethan couldn't quite place. "Hey, can I borrow your phone to check something real quick? Mine's dead," Noah asked casually, holding out his hand. Ethan hesitated for a split second, his heart skipping a beat. He had erased most of his browser history earlier that day, a habit ingrained in him for years, but the thought of someone else holding his phone still made his palms sweat. Sure," Ethan said, forcing a smile as he handed it over. "Just don't go snooping around, okay?" Noah smirked. "Relax. What do you think I'm going to find? Your secret treasure map?" Ethan laughed nervously, watching as Noah tapped on the screen. He tried to focus on the television, but every second Noah had his phone felt like an eternity. And then he saw it. The subtle shift in Noah's expression, the tightening of his jaw, the way his fingers froze mid-swipe. Time seemed to stop. "What's this?" Noah asked, his voice low but sharp, as if he were holding a loaded gun. Ethan's stomach dropped. He knew exactly what Noah had found. He had missed a tab, just one tab, left open from a search he had done late the night before. His face turned pale as Noah turned the screen toward him. It was there, glaring back at him, a dating app for men, left logged in with a message thread clearly visible. "Ethan, is this yours?" Noah asked, his voice a mix of shock and something else Ethan couldn't quite place, curiosity, maybe even amusement. "Give me my phone!" Ethan snapped, lunging forward to snatch it back, but Noah held it out of reach. "No way," Noah said, standing up. "Why didn't you ever tell me? Does anyone else know?" "Noah, stop!" Ethan hissed, panic rising in his chest. His heart raced as he imagined the worst, his family finding out, the looks of disgust, the sermons about sin. "Please, just give it back." Noah studied him for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he handed the phone over. "Don't worry, I won't say anything," he said, his tone oddly calm. But there was something unsettling in the way he said it, as if he were holding on to a secret that gave him power. Ethan grabbed his phone and stormed upstairs, locking himself in his room. He sank onto his bed, clutching the device like it was a lifeline. His mind raced. He had worked so hard to keep his life compartmentalized, to ensure that no one ever found out about the part of himself he had buried so deeply. And now, in a single moment of carelessness, it was all at risk. But what unnerved him the most wasn't just the fear of exposure. It was the way Noah had looked at him, as if he wasn't entirely shocked, as if he had been expecting this all along. As Ethan lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Noah knew his secret now, and the balance of power between them had shifted. Ethan had no idea what his cousin would do with the knowledge, but one thing was certain. His life would never be the same. The days after Noah's discovery were an excruciating blur for Ethan. Every interaction with his cousin felt like walking on broken glass. He avoided being alone with Noah, fearing the weight of an unspoken conversation that loomed between them. At the same time, the paranoia of what Noah might do with the knowledge consumed him. Would he tell their family? Would he confront Ethan again? The possibilities churned in Ethan's mind, keeping him awake at night. Ethan's family had no idea of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Their days were filled with prayers, Bible readings, and routine lectures on the importance of purity and traditional values. Every word felt like a stab to Ethan's chest, a reminder of the part of himself he had to keep hidden. He sat through their sermons with a forced smile, nodding at the right moments, all the while wondering if Noah was watching him, judging him. And Noah was watching. His gaze seemed to follow Ethan everywhere. At family dinners, during quiet moments in the living room, even at church, Ethan could feel Noah's eyes on him. It wasn't malicious. If anything, it felt curious, almost searching. But that only made it worse. Ethan couldn't tell if Noah was trying to understand him or waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The tension finally broke one evening when Ethan found himself cornered in the garage. He had gone out to grab some tools for his father when Noah appeared in the doorway, blocking his escape. "Hey," Noah said casually, though his tone betrayed a deeper intent. "We need to talk." Ethan froze, gripping the toolbox tightly. "About what?" Noah stepped closer, his face unreadable. "About what I saw. About you." Ethan's heart pounded. He had spent the past few days rehearsing what he might say if this moment came, but now that it was here, words failed him. I don't know what you're talking about," he lied, his voice trembling. Noah raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. "Don't play dumb, Ethan. You know exactly what I'm talking about." He paused, his gaze softening. "Why didn't you ever tell me? I mean, we're close, aren't we? You could have trusted me." "Trusted you?" Ethan snapped, the anger in his voice surprising even himself. "You don't understand, Noah. You don't know what it's like to live with this. To have to hide who you are every single day because you know your family will never accept you." Noah looked taken aback, but he didn't back down. "You think I don't understand what it's like to feel trapped? To hide things? We all have secrets, Ethan." Ethan laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "Oh, really? And what's your big secret, Noah? That you got a C on your last test? That you kissed some girl and didn't tell your mom? Try living your whole life pretending to be someone you're not." For a moment, Noah didn't respond. He just stood there, staring at Ethan with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Then, quietly, he said, "Maybe we're not as different as you think." Ethan blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "What are you talking about?" Noah hesitated, his usual bravado slipping away. "I mean, maybe I get it more than you think. Maybe I'm not as perfect as everyone thinks I am." Ethan didn't know what to say. Was Noah trying to connect with him, or was this some kind of twisted game? The uncertainty was maddening. "If you get it," Ethan said finally, his voice quieter now, "then why are you doing this? Why are you making this harder for me?" "I'm not trying to make it harder," Noah said, stepping closer. I don't know. I've never seen you like this before, so guarded, so afraid. I guess I wanted to understand why." Ethan shook his head, turning away. "You don't need to understand, Noah. You just need to leave it alone." But Noah didn't leave. He stayed, watching Ethan with a mixture of curiosity and something else, something Ethan couldn't quite identify. It wasn't pity, it wasn't judgment, it was almost longing. But that didn't make sense, did it? The conversation ended there, but the tension didn't. Over the next few weeks, Ethan tried to go back to his routine, but Noah's presence was a constant reminder of what had happened. He couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them, something he didn't fully understand. And then, the text came. Ethan was sitting alone in his room one evening, scrolling through his phone, when a message from Noah popped up. It was short, almost cryptic. "I need to talk to you, alone. Meet me at the park tonight." Ethan's first instinct was to ignore it, but something in the way it was worded made him hesitate. Against his better judgment, he agreed. When he arrived at the park, Noah was already there, sitting on a bench under a dim streetlight. He looked different, nervous, almost vulnerable. Ethan approached cautiously, his heart pounding. "What is it?" Ethan asked, keeping his distance. Noah looked up, his eyes meeting Ethan's. For a moment he didn't say anything. Then finally he said, "I've been thinking about what you said, about hiding who you are, and I think I've been doing the same thing." Ethan froze. "What are you talking about?" Noah took a deep breath, his voice trembling. "I'm saying, I understand you more than you think. I've been hiding, too, from everyone." Ethan's mind raced as he tried to process what Noah was saying. Was he implying what Ethan thought he was? And if so, what did that mean? Before Ethan could respond, Noah stood up, his expression serious. "I just wanted you to know that you're not alone, and maybe neither am I." Ethan couldn't sleep after Noah's revelation at the park. The weight of his cousin's words pressed heavily on his chest. Maybe neither am I. Those 5 words had shattered the fragile balance Ethan had been clinging to. What did Noah mean? Was he confessing something deeper, or was it just an attempt to empathize? The uncertainty gnawed at Ethan's mind. The following day, Noah acted as if nothing had happened. He joked at breakfast, made lighthearted conversation with their family, and carried on as the golden boy everyone adored. But Ethan noticed the glances, the fleeting looks Noah sent his way when he thought no one was watching. They weren't filled with malice or pity. They were searching, almost as if Noah was waiting for Ethan to acknowledge their unspoken connection. Ethan avoided him as best he could. He didn't want to confront whatever was lingering between them. His emotions were a tangled mess. Anger at Noah for invading his privacy, confusion over Noah's cryptic confession, and fear of what might come next. The thought of anyone else in their family discovering the truth sent chills down his spine. One evening, as Ethan sat alone in his room, scrolling through photos on his phone, he came across an old picture of himself with Adam, his ex-boyfriend. The image brought back a flood of memories, quiet moments stolen in the park, whispered promises in the dark, and the bittersweet ending that left Ethan feeling more alone than ever. Adam had been his first real love, but their relationship ended when the pressure of secrecy became too much to bear. A knock on the door pulled Ethan from his thoughts. Before he could answer, Noah stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him. Ethan tensed, clutching his phone as if it could shield him. "What do you want?" Ethan asked, his voice sharper than he intended. Noah hesitated, his usual confidence replaced by an uncharacteristic vulnerability. I wanted to talk." Ethan sighed, setting his phone down. "About what?" "About what I said the other night. About us." Noah sat down on the edge of the bed, his posture awkward and tense. "I know I crossed a line when I looked at your phone. I shouldn't have done that. But I think maybe it happened for a reason." Ethan frowned, his defenses immediately rising. "A reason? Are you trying to justify invading my privacy?" "No," Noah said quickly. "That's not what I mean. I mean, maybe I was supposed to see it. Maybe it was supposed to open my eyes to who you are, and to who I am." Ethan's breath caught. "What are you saying, Noah?" "I'm saying I get it," Noah said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I get why you hide. I've been hiding too, for as long as I can remember." Ethan stared at him, the weight of Noah's words sinking in. He hadn't been prepared for this, for the possibility that his cousin, the person who had accidentally uncovered his secret, was carrying the same burden. The anger and resentment Ethan had felt toward Noah began to shift, replaced by a complicated mix of empathy and confusion. "Noah?" Ethan began, but he didn't know how to finish. He didn't know what to say to someone who was just beginning to unravel the truth about themselves. Noah looked down at his hands, his fingers fidgeting nervously. "I've always looked up to you, you know. You've always seemed so sure of yourself, so strong. I never imagined you were going through this, that you were hiding like me." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Strong? I've spent my whole life terrified of being found out. That's not strength, Noah. That's survival." "But you're still here," Noah said, meeting Ethan's eyes. "You're still standing. That's strength." The sincerity in Noah's voice caught Ethan off guard. For the first time in years, he felt seen, truly seen. But the vulnerability of that moment also terrified him. He had spent so long building walls around himself, and now they were beginning to crack. "I don't know what you want from me, Noah," Ethan said finally, his voice trembling. "I don't know if I can help you figure this out." "I'm not asking you to," Noah said. I don't want you to feel like you're alone, because you're not." Ethan didn't respond. He couldn't. The weight of the conversation, combined with the years of fear and secrecy, was too much. Noah seemed to sense this and stood up, his movements hesitant. "I'll leave you alone," Noah said softly. "But if you ever want to talk, I'm here." As Noah left the room, Ethan felt a mix of relief and sadness. He didn't know what to do with the connection that had formed between them, or with the revelation that his cousin, his confident, golden cousin, was struggling with the same fears and doubts. That night, Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. He thought about Noah, about Adam, about the life he had been too afraid to live. And, for the first time in a long time, he wondered if things could ever be different, if he could ever stop hiding. But, as the hours passed and the shadows deepened, Ethan knew one thing for certain. The path ahead would not be easy, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to take the first step. The days stretched into weeks, and Ethan found himself caught between two conflicting emotions: the weight of his cousin Noah's words and the ghosts of his past that refused to let him move forward. Noah's confession had cracked something open, not just between them, but within Ethan himself. For the first time, he saw his cousin as more than the perfect family favorite. He saw someone who was just as lost, just as afraid, and just as desperate for acceptance. One evening, Ethan's solitude was interrupted by a message on his phone. It was from Adam, his ex-boyfriend. The sight of Adam's name brought a rush of emotions that Ethan had spent months trying to bury. They hadn't spoken since the day Adam had ended their relationship, frustrated by Ethan's inability to be honest about who he was. But now, there it was. "Hey, Ethan, I was thinking about you. Can we talk?" Ethan stared at the screen, his chest tightening. He had replayed their last conversation 100 times in his mind, dissecting every word, every moment where he could have done something differently. Adam had been the first person to truly love him, the first person to see him for who he was, but Ethan's fear had driven them apart. Without overthinking, Ethan typed back, "Yeah, when?" The reply came almost instantly. "Tomorrow night? Same place as before?" Ethan's heart raced. He knew what Adam meant, the cafe where they had shared their first date, the place where everything had started, and where in some ways it had ended. The next evening, Ethan arrived at the cafe early, his hands trembling as he clutched his coffee cup. He looked around nervously, his eyes scanning the room for Adam. When Adam walked through the door, Ethan's breath caught. He looked the same, confident, warm, with a hint of sadness in his eyes. But there was something else, something guarded. "Hey," Adam said, sliding into the seat across from Ethan. "It's been a while." "Yeah," Ethan said softly, unsure of what to say. The weight of everything unsaid hung between them like a heavy curtain. Adam broke the silence. "I wanted to see you because... I don't know. I've been thinking about us, about what we had." Ethan swallowed hard. "I've been thinking about it too, about how I messed it up." "You didn't mess it up," Adam said gently. "You were scared. I get that now. I wish you had trusted me." Ethan looked down at his coffee, his throat tightening. "I wanted to, but you don't know how hard it is to live in a family like mine. To feel like you're constantly lying, constantly hiding. I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't know how to keep you either." Adam sighed, his gaze softening. "I get it, Ethan, but it hurt. It still hurts." "I know," Ethan whispered. "I'm sorry." They sat in silence for a moment, the noise of the cafe fading into the background. Ethan felt the familiar pull toward Adam the way he always did. But there was something else now, something that told him things could never go back to the way they were. Adam broke the silence again. So, how are things now? Are you still hiding? Ethan hesitated, his mind flashing to Noah. Yeah, I am. But things are different. Someone knows now. Who? Adam asked, his eyebrows raising in surprise. My cousin, Noah, Ethan admitted. He found out by accident. It's been complicated. Adam studied him for a moment, his expression unreadable. Complicated how? Ethan wasn't sure how to answer. He wasn't even sure he fully understood the situation himself. He's going through his own stuff, I think. He's been trying to connect with me, but I don't know what he wants. Adam nodded slowly. It sounds like he's trying to figure himself out. Maybe he sees you as someone who can help. Maybe, Ethan said, though the thought made him uneasy. I just don't know if I can handle it. I'm barely keeping myself together. Adam reached across the table, placing a hand on Ethan's. The gesture was small, but it sent a surge of emotion through Ethan. You're stronger than you think, Adam said softly. You've always been stronger than you think. Ethan's eyes burned with unshed tears. For the first time in a long time, he felt seen, understood, but it also reminded him of everything he had lost and everything he was still too afraid to fight for. They talked for hours, catching up on the months they had been apart. But as the night wore on, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting was more than just a reunion. It was a goodbye. When they finally said their goodbyes outside the cafe, Ethan felt a bittersweet ache in his chest. As he walked home, his phone buzzed with a message from Noah. Where are you? We need to talk. Ethan sighed, his heart heavy. He didn't know what Noah wanted, but he knew he couldn't avoid him forever. Something was coming, something that would change everything, and Ethan wasn't sure he was ready. Ethan sat in his room, staring at the text from Noah. He knew he couldn't avoid his cousin any longer, but the weight of their last conversation still hung heavy in his mind. Noah's cryptic words, his searching eyes, everything about their recent interactions felt charged, like they were tiptoeing around an invisible line. Ethan wasn't sure if he wanted to cross it or run away entirely. Reluctantly, he replied, I'm home. You can come by if you want. It didn't take long for Noah to show up. He knocked softly on Ethan's door before stepping inside without waiting for an answer. His expression was tense, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something more vulnerable. Ethan sat up on his bed, watching him carefully. What's going on, Noah? Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Noah shut the door behind him and leaned against it, his arms crossed. For a moment he didn't say anything, as if he were struggling to find the right words. Finally, he looked up, his eyes meeting Ethan's. I saw you last night, Noah said quietly. Ethan's stomach dropped. What do you mean? At the cafe, Noah clarified. I saw you with him. Ethan's heart raced. Adam. Of course Noah had seen them. The cafe wasn't far from their neighborhood, and it was the kind of place people from their community often frequented. But why had Noah been there? And why hadn't he said anything? What were you doing there? Ethan asked, his voice defensive. I don't know, Noah admitted. I guess I was curious about you, about your life. And then I saw you with him and... He trailed off, his expression conflicted. And what? Ethan pressed, his frustration bubbling to the surface. What are you trying to say, Noah? Noah ran a hand through his hair, sighing heavily. I don't know, okay? I don't know what I'm feeling or why I'm here. I can't stop thinking about everything you've said, about hiding, about feeling trapped. It's like... I get it, Ethan, more than I want to admit. Ethan froze, his breath catching. The vulnerability in Noah's voice was raw, almost painful. He had spent so long resenting his cousin for being the perfect golden boy, the one who could do no wrong. But now, he was beginning to see the cracks beneath the surface. Noah wasn't as invincible as he seemed. Noah, Ethan began, but his cousin cut him off. I saw the way you looked at him, Noah said, his voice quieter now. At Adam. It was different. It wasn't just some casual thing. You cared about him. Ethan nodded slowly. I did. I still do, in some ways, but it's complicated. Why did it end? Noah asked, his curiosity laced with something deeper. Ethan hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. Because I couldn't be honest. With him, with myself, with anyone. Noah nodded, his gaze distant. I think I get that, more than you know. Silence filled the room, heavy and charged. Ethan didn't know what to say, and Noah seemed lost in his own thoughts. Finally, Noah pushed off the door and walked toward the bed, sitting down next to Ethan. The proximity made Ethan's heart race, but he forced himself to stay still. I'm sorry for how I handled things, Noah said. When I found out about you, I didn't know how to react, but I wasn't trying to hurt you. Ethan looked at him, searching for sincerity in his cousin's face. Then why did you keep bringing it up? Why couldn't you just let it go? Because I was jealous, Noah admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. The words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He stared at Noah, unsure if he had heard correctly. Jealous? Of what? Of you, Noah said, meeting Ethan's eyes. Of the fact that you've actually lived it, that you felt something real. I've spent my whole life pretending to be someone I'm not, and it's exhausting. Seeing you with him, it made me realize how much I'd been lying to myself. Ethan didn't know how to respond. The confession was so unexpected, so raw, that it left him speechless. He had spent so much time resenting Noah, thinking of him as the perfect cousin who could do no wrong. But now, he was seeing a side of Noah he had never imagined, a side that was just as broken as his own. Noah, Ethan began, but his cousin interrupted him. I'm not saying I have it all figured out, Noah said quickly. I don't. But I needed to tell you. I needed you to know that you're not alone in this. The vulnerability in Noah's voice was almost too much to bear. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat as he looked at his cousin, the walls he had built around himself slowly beginning to crumble. I don't know what to say, Ethan admitted. I've spent so long hiding that I don't even know how to let someone in. Noah nodded, his expression soft. You don't have to figure it out all at once, but maybe we can figure it out together. The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. For the first time, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope that he wasn't as alone as he thought. But at the same time, he couldn't shake the fear of what this newfound connection with Noah might mean. As the night wore on, the two cousins talked late into the evening, sharing pieces of themselves they had kept hidden for far too long. But as they opened up to each other, Ethan couldn't help but feel that this was only the beginning of something much more complicated and much more dangerous. Ethan and Noah's connection deepened, but with it came an unbearable tension. One evening, after another quiet conversation in the park, Noah admitted something Ethan wasn't prepared to hear. I think I have feelings for you. Ethan froze, his heart pounding. Noah, we can't. This isn't right. I know, Noah whispered, his voice breaking, but I can't help how I feel. Ethan walked away, leaving Noah behind in the dark. His chest felt heavy with guilt, confusion, and fear. The lines between them had blurred too far, and Ethan didn't know how to fix it. Ethan decided to distance himself from Noah, focusing instead on moving forward. But one afternoon, while scrolling through social media, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A photo of Noah and Adam together, laughing at a cafe. His heart sank. Was it just a coincidence? Or was there something more? He texted Adam demanding an explanation, but the response shattered him. We've been seeing each other. I didn't know how to tell you. Ethan felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. The betrayal cut deeper than he thought possible. Ethan confronted Noah that same night. How could you? How could you go behind my back like this? Noah looked guilty, but defiant. I didn't plan this, Ethan. It just happened. It just happened. He was mine, Noah. You knew what he meant to me. Noah's face softened. And what about me? Do I mean anything to you, or are you just going to keep pretending this doesn't exist? Ethan turned away, tears streaming down his face. You've ruined everything. Ethan packed his things and left the family home. He couldn't stay, not with the weight of everything that had happened. As he walked away, Noah tried to stop him, but Ethan shook his head. "This is too much, Noah. I can't do this anymore." Weeks later, Ethan received a message from Adam. "I'm sorry for everything." But by then, it didn't matter. The damage was done, and Ethan was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered heart alone. He stood by the window of his new apartment, staring out at the city lights. He had lost Noah, Adam, and his sense of belonging. All that remained was the painful lesson that love, in all its forms, could sometimes destroy more than it healed. Thank you for following Ethan's story. It was a journey full of raw emotions, betrayal, and heartache, a reminder of how complicated love and family can be. But now, we want to hear your thoughts. What did you think of Ethan's decisions? Did Noah's actions surprise you, and how did the ending make you feel? We worked hard to bring you this emotional roller coaster, and your feedback is what drives us to create even more impactful stories. Leave a comment below and tell us your feelings. Did this story resonate with you? What would you have done differently if you were Ethan? And don't forget to rate this story on a scale from 1 to 10. Your voice matters, and we'd love to know how this touched your heart. So go ahead, share your thoughts, and let's talk about it. Your comment might just spark a conversation that inspires others.